And if you're pulling for Sol, it's most likely because you're trying to hard counter strike teams. And I honestly don't think we've observed that. I keep saying that every week. I don't think we've seen the strike meta here in Global that JP saw in terms of a lot of guilds hard walling it.
Hey, what happened?
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 5 here. JB and I back with another week of the Leonis report. I know I'm sorry for missing last week, and I know we missed another week prior, just work and life, vacations, this and that. There's a ton of cover, though, and JB, obviously good to see you again, man. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm happy to get back into it and talk about the game. Like you said, there's been stuff coming in that we haven't. I mean, we've talked about it before, but kind of when it came into JP, we've got the enhanced timeline now, so it feels like it's kind of that closer window of when we're getting back to it. But how was the little vacation that you had?
It was good. Out in California, got to sightsee a little bit. We were Napa Valley and Santa Cruz, and we were kind of in the Bay Area. Went to an Oakland Athletics game just for the fun of it. And yeah, traveling was fun. I've not been to California before. I've been as far west as Vegas a couple times. I got family out there. But Cali was cool. Very different from New England. Not just weather, but obviously just like everything. Like, I don't know, architecture and traffic and people and the cityscape. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be little differences no matter where you go. I've been to California a few times. I like it out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. Like depending on where you go, the traffic can be pretty rough.
Yeah, but yeah, things back here. Have a good week, I hope, so far.
It was good. Yeah. Got out to kind of the last baseball game of the year for the Woo Sox that I mentioned.
Yep.
So that was fun. Got out with the family, and the weather has just been something else here in New England. It's just raining like every single day.
It's just depressing. And if it's not raining, it's just cloudy. It's just gray. It's just abysmal. On a more positive note, we do have a lot of fun stuff to talk about today, and recapping just some of it. We obviously have Final Fantasy VIII, which was the big announcement on the live stream last night, what's coming this week. We're doing some quick catch-up, Gryfford, and that vision card that came out this last week. We'll talk about the Road to Worldwide now that it's wrapping up, just kind of like what they've announced for the rewards, just our general thoughts, maybe some finishing point conclusions now that it's really kind of closing the chapter on that book. And, you know, we have some quality of life updates we'll talk about, limited Guild War changes. We're going to do our usual 1v1 match on the new Arena map this week because they are switching the Arena gameplay up, which I think is very interesting. So we'll talk more about that. And then just kind of capping things off with Gernsback, the new JP unit, and the Ultros vision card and Esper. All you water people that wanted Espers, there you go. We're catching up. We're getting there.
We got him now.
Right? And then we got some good 4 Q&A things. So we do have a lot of good stuff to talk about here. And none the least being Final Fantasy VIII announced. I know you and I were both in chat last night on that live stream announcement. How do we feel about it now? Weeks later, now that we've kind of seen them come out. Anything that you're feeling about this week going into it?
So I'm excited that those units are coming in just because it's it's an all-time favorite, amongst like the mainline Final Fantasy games for me. Obviously 6, 7, and 8 were probably like my formative experiences when it comes to Final Fantasy, and obviously went on to Tactics after that. But yeah, Squall I think is he's kind of, because of his kit, he's kind of been taking a lot of heat in the community. It is what it is. He's nothing special. He's like a decent bruiser. I think he's not a bad unit by any means. And they did try to, I think JP was very underwhelmed as well, and that's been borne out in kind of the usage rates and kind of their feedback. And I think Gumi did take a kind of a pass at him with the Trials of Reckoning item to just kind of make him a little bit better, which that item definitely does. Like, it gives him a nice damage boost and even enhances his barrier a bit. But I think there's too many problems with the kit itself that keeps him out of that top tier of the game where where I think most of us would like him to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just looking the other day. I think his pick rate on JP is like 1.5% of all offensive teams, which is woefully lower than anything else. But there's something I wanted to talk about that I think you had mentioned, and this actually ties into the live stream. And let me share this. I was really surprised that the Squall Vision card we're getting is still mono lightning. They didn't change the effect for global, and I'm surprised by that because they did kind of do some things with the Ibarra vision card where, they didn't want to overlap the effects that already existed, so they gave it a new job-based vision card. I thought they were going to do the same thing here. I think part of the reason that he's underwhelming in JP is because our vision card in global, the Esper vision card, I think this is a sizable buff for Squall that JP doesn't have access to. I think that 35 slash res pen on the main slot with that extra bulk, the 13%, the unit effect that's technically 20% more attack than his vision card does, that I actually think for us, this Squall vision card is a bit of a nerf. In terms of what he can potentially do. So I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing that, skewed output compared to what JP is using. And hopefully this changes things a little bit for us. This is still like a good subvision card, obviously, and you still get a lot of benefits through a couple different things. But yeah, I don't know if you thought about that at all, or if, I think you might have mentioned it. Just to
yeah, I think when we kind of looked at this a few weeks ago, we were talking about that as well. I think now that Alaya is here and we're kind of, she's very much front and center. I don't know. I don't mind the card. Like I'm definitely gonna grab it because I mean, obviously mono elements, it's getting to a point now where it's getting a little bit harder to play in some scenarios. Obviously depends on the element and kind of who's the latest unit, but Squall, it's almost like, at least for now, his best application is mono element. And in that case, you might want to actually double up on these cards. And that kind of gives you flexibility to, maybe go up against other Alaya teams. You can get 2 stacks of unit resistance and you get the strike resistance on there.
Yep. And Squall innately, I think, does some pretty good things about strike. If I recall, he had some good resistances to it, and his range benefit does technically affect her because Stag Impact is a pretty decently ranged ability.
And if you think about his barrier as well, if you have a tank out in front of him, and usually in that case, you might have your DPS trailing behind, that first hit coming in from Alaya will be potentially mitigated by his barrier.
Absolutely.
Maybe if he's 4 squares away or further. So I don't know. I think he's all right. He's not going to be lighting anybody up by any means, at least at this point. The night job group at this point is still kind of, it has like some nice pieces to it. Obviously, there's some great units in there. There's some quality cards, but I feel like this is one that they're going to be coming back to in the future. Obviously, we're now skipping that Melnia card, which is their best card to date. So and who knows when we're actually going to get it. So I think we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
No, definitely. You teed that up perfectly because you mentioned just before that he's kind of best in mono lightning teams, and you're absolutely right. For this reason, lightning does not have the benefit of, let's say, like water and ice, where they have a lot of good like dual element agility cards or dual element AoE unit res cards. The lightning overlap is the lightning and wind, and that's a magic buff. And the other one is lightning fire, which is defense pen. It's just not something that he really needed per se in terms of building a hybrid team. And so yeah, Squall's been very handcuffed to that mono lightning team. And so that's obviously, part of the reason. But I don't have high hopes for him, but I do think he's gonna perform better here than he does there. And I do think he'll probably get some better lasting effects now that we've seen Saul's introduction to the game. And we're seeing a little bit of Alaya kind of starting to shift away from things, if that opens doors for him in other capacities and as the night job group gets expanded. But obviously there's other great characters here too. I know you and I love Rinoa conceptually of what she brings to that Earth team. Great timing too, considering how popular Lightning is at the moment. Do you still feel the same about her at all?
I'm pretty excited for Rinoa. I think that like we said before, like if you have to sum the unit up, it's an Earth Velis, kind of at its core functionality. It's a kind of an offensive based support unit. So she's got a little bit of healing. Like obviously, like I said, with Alaya in the meta, having a support that's earth based is an advantage. Even if you're mixing in with ice or some other element, because she can actually take a hit from Alaya because of the innate elemental advantage, and then stack up unit resistance and all the other stuff you normally would. Whereas Velis right now, it's pretty difficult to get him to take a hit from Alaya. You really have to work at it, and getting him to take 2 hits is really not going to happen. So
no, I've done a couple of matches here where he can take a hit, but 2 hits, absolutely not. You're 100% correct on that. And I'm still not 100% sure because I remember Galzak coming out and he vastly underwhelmed from what I thought he would add to Earth. I know she's got a different AI and a whole different mechanic, but I know I had a higher hopes for like someone who could haste and pocket Dialdo and Bradley. That didn't really come to fruition. Obviously, JP seems to have used her very well, so I don't think that's going to repeat or recur. But I think there's also some oddities in her AI that I'm still kind of like on the fence. That it seems like, you know, her decision making in terms of when she attacks versus when she heals. There's obviously that wonky mechanic where she could select two, but she won't heal someone if they're not under the threshold, which is a massive loss for sustain. So I think she's a great value add. I think she's probably the best of the three, and it's probably not even because of her. It's probably more just because of Earth. I haven't seen her in many mono. I mean, you know, dual element or rainbow teams. I really think I've seen her just, you know, really enabling that Earth team in the current lighting meta. But I have a lot of good things to say about her. I think she's great.
Yeah, I mean, she's part of the glove group. So, I mean, glove, at least as a job, it doesn't have its own tank. So you kind of looking to mix it in with other groups at that point, like maybe you mix it in with red mage or you know, something like that, which you know, there's a few cards that overlap there, but obviously there's the water earth connection as well. So you know, maybe you could mix her in with Glassy, and then you know, she's obviously that red mage group as well.
Yep.
So I think that's maybe the best angle is in terms of like multi-element for her. But yeah, in terms of JP play, I think predominantly it's been mono for her so far.
Totally. And to your point on the glove card, I agree with you. That's a really good one for her to be in. I know me personally, I'm kind of, and this could be a creativity thing. I really haven't tested as much as I would have liked. But using Addison as the example, I know when she first came out, everyone's brains just collectively went, "Pfft." You can put her and like give someone courage and a heal back. Like she's going to be on every single team. That hasn't been the case. So, and her being a glove unit, we kind of extrapolated that would be the case. And Rinoa, you know, conceptually that makes sense. Maybe it is just a imagination thing. Maybe we're just not testing as thoroughly as we could be with those synergies. Yeah.
Well, the other tough thing though is like at least in terms of Addison and some of these units that we've gotten recently is that the meta has just been so volatile, and because of the acceleration that you know some units that we thought were going to be stalwarts in the meta, like Raf, for example, have you know they were good for a good month, and now it's just they're a little bit harder to play, at least you know in some of the higher end PvP brackets. It's kind of tough. We're kind of at the point where we're sort of waiting for things to slow down. You know, according to the live stream, they said that they were. So
Yep.
we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we'll obviously lose out a little bit of that visibility, but I know in the live stream they announced we'll at least have 1 month ahead of time still, which is better than nothing. Still not as good as we would have liked, but yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that I'm really looking forward to for 8. Irvine, we just kind of talked about recently. If he's fine, 5 the extra viz kicking, I can't see why I wouldn't pull him. He seems like a good unit for the future of missile, where you consider the broad scheme of missile units. A lot of them are just kind of out on the fritz in terms of how well they compete. He's one of the few that probably can in the future, but even then, just given how quickly the meta is changing, he seems like one of those characters that sometimes, you know, you hope that they'll be better in the future, and then the future comes, and then the creep just happens. And there's a bunch of characters I know that I've thought that I know, like Hio is one of them, where I'm like, this is a great character, just bad timing, and like 9 months later, you know, it's just gone. That chance never came.
Well, the problem, I think that's spot on in terms of Irvine, but his kind of prime usage, I envision would be with Melnia, who is you know missing in action, and that's bad for both of them really because Melnia now is kind of missing out on some prime you know pick opportunities for you know when Lightning is you know so out there in the meta, and then Irvine obviously he doesn't get the benefit of having that amazing Melnia card,
Right.
and then probably one of his best partners that you could have him with in the game, and it's a little bit unfortunate.
Yep.
I would say.
Nope. Absolutely astute. That's a good point. Good. Well, I think that's really all we necessarily wanted to cover for Final Fantasy VIII. This was kind of a recent announcement in JP, as far as we're concerned, from a you know, Leonis Spireport when we look ahead. So we have kind of talked about this in depth, and at this point now, it's time to just see it put into action.
Pull it if they're if you want to play with them, but
Yeah.
I think you know a lot of people can probably skip this one over.
Definitely. And on that note, catching up on some of the things we missed last week, we did have Gryfford's release. Brand new ice unit, 70 cost. I know that he was one of my favorite potential picks to come out in 2023. He was finally released. I didn't look that hard at him when he first came out. I'm literally dropping my character review tomorrow morning for him, though, now that I've actually been able to look deeper. Did you pull for him? Have you seen him around? Did you kind of follow up on your forward look at all? Do you have any thoughts on him?
Oh, Gryfford, I actually haven't ever reviewed. I kind of have just made the choice not to do like the 70 costs. I don't know. I've just been a little bit short on time recently, so I haven't been able to kind of get to some of these, but I have pulled him and I have looked at him extensively. Grabbing a character for 18K, like as opposed to like what it normally costs, I'll always go for those. So I'm slow building him though, because I kind of just wanted a project to work on, and he's kind of slow burning for me.
Nice. Good. Well, I've built him already, maxed him. My bias kicked in. I'm like, I gotta do it. I'm actually very high on him for a 70 cost unit. I think he's better than a 70 cost unit in many regards. Statistically speaking, I was very surprised how good many of his base stats were. How good his job is supposed to be. Like, he's this pseudo tank in the respect that come the mid fight, his main 120 ability generates 6 hate for himself, but it's only 3 range away. And so it's this kind of concept where, like, he doesn't necessarily frontline to start the fight. He kind of should be more in the back, and then he'll catch up to you. And the moment he does, he's able to kind of pull hate in his direction, wherever that comes from. And his Select 2 ability is very cool because it's 250 CT down, which is technically more than Elias. Hers is 200. So I think something very interesting there with, like, the counteracting of CT, that he technically has a 50 CT advantage in that exchange. Not to mention the fact that it's just a lot of good things from a buff perspective. What he has, he's got some imperils. There's some good PvE potential where he's got a lot of double hits. He's got AoE res down. He's got slow. Good lord, there's a whole bunch of things there, and yeah, I think he's really good for a 70 cost unit.
No, he's got a really nice kit. This is going to be a job that I'm sure we're going to be seeing as a sub on some of the newer units that are going to be coming through. He's kind of debuting the job. But I really like that Select 2 CT break there for the 25% down. He's got the enhanced chance to sleep as well, which I think is slept on.
Yes.
But it's got a nice modifier. He's got kind of some absorb things he can do with the re-raise the spell. Oh, he's pretty solid. He's like pretty much any unit post Elia, he's getting a bump in his unit resist and his strike resist, which is it's gonna be nice for fighting against her. So you could slap him next to Reagan or Howlett, or the Ice Bros. Maybe use all 3 of them.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yep.
So yeah, I like him. I like him good enough.
All right. Well, if I could spoil this early now, we're obviously doing a little PvP matchup in just a little bit. You might see Gryfford come out. We'll see. Just for fun. But just one question though, because this is a consideration given the 70 cost. Do you think he fits in well with Ice for what the alternative options are? Because Ice is notoriously a very friendly, cost limited group where Nasha, Curry, Shell at one time. Do you think he's still competitive enough to kind of overtake some of them, or do you think they still have some of the edge on him?
I mean, when you look at him next to like Curry, missile units are like kind of dependent on the map, I would say. Like there's certain maps that just aren't going to be great for them. Curry is still great though. Like if you're going up against physical teams, like getting the frostbite out, it's still very hard to resist it. I obviously Gryfford's I think it's like different flavors of what you're trying to do. Gryfford can tank, he can bruise. So I'd say it kind of depends what you're going for in your team.
Yeah.
Obviously, like the only other tank like that you would think of in Ice would be Snow, and he still doesn't have his 140 yet, so that's kind of hurting to bring him for a 90 cost at this point.
Yeah, totally agreed. I do think he's probably better than Nasha, though, who I think has been slightly counterplayed, where her big thing was really just like courage, a lot of defense, but it's penetratable. There's more courage in the game now that there's more ways to remove it. Maybe not at this very moment, but it's something that we've seen counterplay for before that, at least if she's fully reincarnated, probably has an edge, but even then, there's agility issues. There's not as much attack value. There's no penetration. It just hasn't aged the same as some of the other tanks.
Yeah, the thing with Nasha is like the paladin job just really doesn't have any utility besides kind of being tanky and being like a statue there. And that's like really hurt the job the most, I would say. Whereas, other tanks now are just getting so much, not only like much better survivability, but much better utility that the slot compression there is worth it just to bring kind of a newer tank, I would say.
Yeah. No, totally agreed. And then alongside Gryfford, they had the new, we call it the Shalze Vision card because that's when it came out, but it's really not a Shalze Vision card. She's not on it. Or she is, I'm sorry, the Shalze Vision card, but Gryfford's not on it. So technically, kind of an odd delay here as well. This Vision card, though, at first glance, I might know a couple months ago, we were a little bit higher on because obviously we were kind of pigeonholed or tunnel visioned on the dark meta, and seeing that 24% dark res popped out and the 35% slash res pen is a notable number as well for both either a main or a sub slot. Is this card still impressive to you at all? Like, what do we think about it nowadays, seeing it come out?
I think it's decent. Like, I don't know, it's something that you can throw in a support like a Shalze, or like a Minwoo. I mean, there's even like you look at like Miranda on the card there for the light element. Like, I don't know, like there's a place for it when dark is kind of in the forefront. So like if you're seeing dark a lot in your PvP brackets or you're seeing them in arena, like this may be something that you can break out. In terms of like a lot of the PvP scene, at least for right now, I think this one is kind of just collecting some dust though, just because dark is not, in the forefront for the moment, just because, Alaya is everywhere. So
Nope, I'd agree with that. I've neutered or tempered expectations on this because there are enough dark res cards that we've seen the mathematical impact of it. I know light technically has the Final Fantasy 14 card. Dark technically has, I think it's Demon Wall that has the 20% dark res on it. So like mathematically speaking, we've seen the impact of what that resistance looks like. It's pretty good actually. But then again, that light versus dark matchup, it's kind of a necessity. Outside of light and dark matchup though, I don't think I've really seen anything to say fire units with 40% dark res. Like I don't think I've seen that as much. And so I do think this is a really nice advantage for a lot of these units. But this is one of those instances where I look at the units on here and I just kind of count and I'm like, all right, who are the good ones? Who do I use most often? Who are the best ones? And I can like count on one hand the amount of units here that I'm like, man, these units like really good still. We're going to use this card a lot on them. So I think that's probably the thing that hurts it the most for me is that the variety of characters just isn't there for where the game currently is overall.
I think that when JP got this card, could be wrong, but I don't think that they had Alaya yet. I think that Dark was kind of still king of the hill at that point. So
Yep.
I know that there was people that were using like shawls and like a fire team, which this card can be, like with Hio and kind of double bruising with shawls into dark and kind of doing pretty decent. It is actually like a not too shabby of an offensive card there because it has like the 20 human killer mod and like pretty nice slash res pen.
Yeah.
It's a card I think that I'm slow building it. I'm not to kind of get it done. I think it'll have its use at some point.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, I've passed on it for this week. I'll pick it up in a random pull at some point later, but I don't think I'll get the full value of it anytime soon. Good. All right. Well, on that note, we have the Road to Worldwide, the live stream last night, where there was a lot that they did. They spent a decent amount of time going through a fair amount of things. They were talking about the compensation. No, not just compensation. That's probably the wrong word. It's the gifts that we're getting because I think they're officially announcing that the Road to Worldwide is ending this week. And I think that was kind of the big build up. They're closing the chapter on it. We're not going to get any more on it. No more producers letters, no more whatever updates. They've given us a relatively broad roadmap of what to expect for the next month, some expectations of timing. Yeah, I know you and I were both present for that. Yeah, so we'll kick things off with the gifts that they announced, and there's 3 full pages of this. There's a lot to read, but ranging from, I'm going to just highlight some of these, 3K Visior, 100 large energy pots, 1,000 skip tickets of each. You have some element of Fragments of Thoughts and Awakening Prisms, 300, some Universal Mind Spheres, 100 UR scrolls, some great SR and MR scrolls, which people don't necessarily have. And then just these next couple pages, you're getting 6 extra blossoms, some broadstones, 20 rainbow vision spears, which I know people are obviously like very hungry for, a decent amount of trusted shine stand, which is the universal like trust stone upgrade, a fair amount of experience cubes, and then a bunch of hammers here for like trust stone resmithing and forging. And overall, I'm like pretty happy with this. This is, I mean, this is a pretty sizable gift. I don't know about yourself.
No, I mean this is one of the best Hiroki gifts we've seen, I would say, in years at this point. Like, this is, I mean, you just outlined it. I'd say, like, normally we're getting like 2K viz. We're, at least recently, we've had to like select which kind of rewards we want, if we want to get a few rainbow spheres, or if we want a few scrolls or whatever. I'm glad that they should have been doing this the whole road to worldwide. Like, last month's gift should have been this as well. I'm glad that they kind of looked at the feedback and decided to go over the top with this gift, because it's much needed. Unfortunately, it's not going to be enough for everyone out there, but I do appreciate the gesture. I think that it's a good step forward.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, because there's people that obviously keep bringing up the point that we lost out on a sizable amount of viz with the shortening of the login bonuses and whatnot. But anyone ever asking for like 50,000 viz was never going to get it. That is literally never. It's not even a fathomable option that they were just going to freely hand out 50,000 viz like in a month or two. It just wasn't going to happen, period. And so, to your point of them releasing this a little sooner, a little more often, I completely agree, because I think it's one of those things that, unless you're literally sitting there with a spreadsheet tracking every viz you spend, you don't necessarily notice. And you don't even notice it on like the increased pull rates on some of the banners for those that had pulled. Like, you don't actually get to see the impact of how much viz you save. But I know with a lot of these items here, when you talk about things like those scrolls of the UR scrolls that you're getting 100 of, in terms of the 6 blossoms, maybe some of those rainbow fragments, those are things that you might have been spending viz on to get in the shop to build your units. That's viz that you spent on those things that could have been spent on banners. And so, to your point of releasing these a little more often, I agree. It'd be one of those things that if they hand these out, you wouldn't notice it, but like you'd kind of feel it. You'd have more viz because you're not spending these in the shop to acquire them as often. But overall, I think it's a very good gift. Yeah.
And they did announce, kind of as part of this campaign they're doing, there's a bunch of summons coming in. I think they put the mark at 350 summons, like with some guaranteed URs in there. So
correct, yeah.
I mean, even if you're a day one player and you have most of that stuff, personally, I'm still looking forward to it, because that's going to get me Mog medals, yep, which in turn is going to get me more rainbow mine spheres. It's going to get me, all those kind of materials that are needed to enhance the units. So the pulls are good either way, if you need the stuff or you don't.
Yep, totally. And they did do a Q&A section here, and they taken our questions from the Discord, from some Google Forms, a whole bunch of places. And I was fortunate enough, my question was the second one featured on there. I tried to bring up a question about why they didn't offer more paid packs. And I know that's something you and I talked about. I know a lot of the Q&A was, they picked good questions. I give them props for that. I think a lot of the answers were non-answers for most of them. I'm not terribly surprised. Like, you have to kind of PR speak and kind of dance on ice around some of them. At the very least, I think most people are pretty happy, because I think they felt heard, that, it's a physical acknowledgement that, Hiroki has literally seen this question. I think there's some kind of satisfaction there, that you're not just like shouting into the ether of the subreddit, never knowing if Gumi actually hears you. So there's something there. The answers were kind of whatever, but I'm glad they did it. I don't know how you felt about that.
No, if I'm grading like the question selection piece of it, A+, like, I think those were very topical questions. I think those were questions that a lot of people have been thinking about over this road to the worldwide, like essentially the last 2 months that we've had here in the game. The answers, I agree, they weren't, I don't want to say that they were non-answers. I think that there's some cultural there's some cultural things there that's, the corporate, Japanese, they don't, they're not kind of as forthcoming, I think, or as to the point in some of these things. And I think you kind of have to read between the lines and kind of listen to the tone, and maybe even some of the things that they're not saying, and then kind of add that up, and you can kind of gather what the actual answer that they're trying to say is. And I think that their position at this point is that Road to Worldwide is done. They're onto this worldwide version. They feel like they have done enough between, and they listed out everything they've given us. It was 10,000 Visior last month. It was, it was those, give back summons. I'm sure, I mean, they didn't specifically list those, but that was part of it. And then, a few other things that they've done, including this enhanced Hiroki's gift. They're considering that part of it. And that is their stance on kind of the the reparations for for this enhanced schedule. So is it enough for most people? I'm going to say no. Is it enough for me? No, especially when you combine the fact that we also didn't have packs for two very big collaborations. That was a problem. I'm glad that they at least have seemingly reinstated it. They said that there is going to be a pack again
tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's going to be several packs, because if it's just going to be one pack each and that's really about it, every couple months, I'd say that's still not good enough.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah,
no, Sam, really well said on the answer of how they answered in terms of whether it's translation issues or corporate speak or cultural differences. I agree that all of it makes sense. And to be fair, maybe we just don't like the answers. Like, that's totally possible too. I know there's probably a couple of answers where their answer was, no, we gave you what we thought was fair, deal with it. And like, at the end of the day, that's it. And
that's exactly it.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess so. On that note, where they're kind of closing the book on it, obviously we likely will too. Probably will not be talking about the topic again. Any final thoughts you have now, just in the context of seeing how it unfurled and what the final product is, and what you think, how it ended up working out?
I think that it's too bad, because I think that had they made some different moves and maybe were just a little bit more generous, they could have come out on the other side of this with a community that was reinvigorated to kind of go into this fourth year. Unfortunately, what they actually have done is completely decimated the community, and morale, I think, overall for the game is really low. A lot of people are leaving or have left, thinking about leaving, not spending. And it's really unfortunate. I think, like I said, had they done a few things differently, I think it could have been different.
I agree totally. I think my biggest thing that is the disappointment, I don't think at any point anything they did actually felt like it was a unique gift to Global, that, hey, we're going to do something special for you. Everything felt like a retread of something they had done, where like the tickets that they gave out, well, they already announced the tickets. That's not a new gift. We knew about that before the Road to Worldwide. The boosted pull rate on like one of those banners, it was a boosted rate in JP. There's something special about that. This like special like guaranteed shard, if you've pulled the unit in the Whimsy or the shop, whatever. That's literally not a value add. That's not how people typically build these units, by just pulling shards in the shop. Maybe 2 years ago it was. Nowadays, it's literally not. So that's a nothing burger in terms of compensation. So the fact, and then we talked about this, there's no like special paid packs. Like, where was our Road to Worldwide paid pack? Do you know what I mean? There was nothing special to say, we know this is a unique circumstance, so here's a unique gift or a unique pack or a unique anything. And I think that's the biggest thing that made us just kind of like eye roll, because it seemed like a lot of just lip flapping, where it's like, hey, thanks for your patience and appreciation, and we're gonna do this and we're gonna celebrate, and it's like, there's no celebration. Like, this is just
it's really tough, because I mean, you see content creators are moving on, you see players moving on. I'm not going anywhere. Like I said, I'm a lifer for this game, but I don't miss what's happened and what's been going on around me, and it's definitely a bit depressing. I'm just hope that Gumi can do better here in year 4.
Yep. And there's actually a piece of me too that's thankful for it, because there was like a rat race of sorts in how invested I was in the game on a day-to-day basis, and it takes over your life, to be honest, in terms of like what you do for hours spent, and how the mock hours overlap with business hours, and what does interfere with like my work life balance and what I do on the weekends and cutoffs. So to kind of have that moment like shaken from me, where you go, hey, Will, like, it's just a game. Like, don't spend more than you already have on this. Like, don't put the time into sacrifice. It's actually kind of nice, because you get that breath where you can actually just say screw it and play and have fun and do whatever. And if you win, you win. You lose, you lose. Pull the units you want. Like, who cares? Like, it's a game. And I think that like final realization was a good thing for me personally. I'm sure there's probably many others that feel the same too.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. So good. All right. Well, on that note, we have one other thing to talk here. Just some of the frontline updates for quality of life. They kind of alluded to some of these a little while ago. They're adding accuracy and evade to the main menu stats when you look at a character. I put this on the live stream last night. I know you commented on it, JB. I've talked about this many times. Justin, I know you listen to this sometimes. I'm going to keep saying it. That's not good enough. Accuracy and evade, you need that stat to include luck, dexterity, and agility as their proper calculations in that stat. Those stats by themselves are actually worthless for the uninformed player looking in the menu. So decent quality of life, not nearly what it should be.
Yeah. Same for crit and crit evasion too.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
yeah, those percentages are only one component of a quite frankly a much bigger component. Like if you were to like break out what percentage of or let's say what percentage of evade is the actual evade stat, it's probably like 30%. Like luck is a way bigger factor, and agility is a way bigger factor. Like
I do like the this quick pick added into free match. I think that's going to be really cool for community tournaments and things, like having that as an option now that we can go in there and play that. And that obviously, since it's in friendly matches, that means that we should be able to play it in manual, I would think.
So I'm actually confused on this a little bit because they said it's available for friendly and free matches. And so friendly matches I get because it's basically a custom game. You invite someone to a room. That's a real great value add for like, just playing with your buddies. But free matches is a very different thing. That's a random queue that you get put into. If you can suddenly get medals from quick pick stuff in free match, that adds another element to free matching that doesn't exist currently for medals. I don't know if I'm misunderstanding that, but yeah.
Yeah, I think we're just going to need to see what it actually what it ends up being because it is very cryptic. I don't know if it means that the free match queuing will have quick pick when quick pick is active. Because otherwise, like you would have to, I don't know how it would work. Because like you said, it is a queue. Are you queuing for different things in order to match up? That would be
right
fragmenting an already kind of hard to find game matching.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That being said, I know one of the big upsides to quick pick matches is that the way the game works, it doesn't keep you in a live multi room. Like if you DC from a free match currently, you lose just straight up. But quick pick does not count as a live multi room. You can technically skip that battle because it's just an auto battle, which is a major change. Like that's why I'm curious how they're going to reconcile that. I think most people would prefer that because you completely eradicate the risk of accidentally disconnecting. You minimize your app or Wi-Fi goes out or something. That's a big thing that Quick Pick has over free match. Is in that it's a not an instance like that. And then,
I do hope that that at least in the friendly match that we can manual it now because I would love to take advantage of that for my own tournaments.
Yeah, definitely.
So we'll see.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun like community-based stuff that opens doors for. And the last one, this is a small one, but it's nice. They're adding in-game weapon icons to the characters so you can better identify which class they belong to. That's a great value add because for like the staff jobs, the sword jobs, there's really no way other than memorizing the characters that you would ever know which class they belong to. So I think that's a really good one they finally put in there.
Yeah, I added these into my job tool, vision card tool when these came out in JP. It hasn't been that long that they've been over, maybe like a month or so. Maybe a little bit, maybe 5 weeks, but yeah, it's much needed. I think this is a huge step forward in kind of that visibility and kind of team building with those. So that's a big value add.
Yeah, definitely good. Well, that's really all we want to talk about for content coming into the game right now. We're going to segue out to the war room, talk a little bit about the limited guild war that's coming out, the new map that's with it, the cost restrictions. We'll then talk a little bit about strike meta and what Alaya has done and completely flipped my prediction of what I thought was going to happen from a strike meta perspective. I know we're like laughing at that, and I love to be wrong because I like memeing on myself. But we'll obviously talk about the new arena function too, and we have our own match where we'll highlight some of that. But to kick things off, so the new map is the Ancient Ruins 12, and so right now the effects you might be seeing on the screen, these are not the actual effects. This is just the purpose of map visualization, but Limited Guild Wars cost 290 restrictions, which that's still pretty generous of a cost. I don't think
pretty loose with the restriction.
Yeah. Okay, so you can't do a triple 100 cost team. That's not gonna really do much for most people. But the buffs here that they're giving, are what Lightning and Dark are getting defense pen up. That's for Squall and Irvine, and then Earth is getting cast time reduction. That's obviously for Rinoa. This map, just at first glance, is a very interesting map in that there's a very tight funnel here right in the middle where everyone obviously kind of has to lean into. Any certain predictions of what you think is going to happen here? I have a rough idea, but
well, I mean, it's one of those maps like pretty much every other map in the game that once Alaya gets into that middle area there, she can hit you no matter where you are on the map.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like, does it really matter?
nope.
I mean, like, she's just pretty dumb right now.
Yeah, I would agree. You're going to see a lot of Lightning Alaya. For those of you in lower ranks that don't see her, I actually don't know if I really love this map for Dark. There's just such a narrow pathway toward the middle there where, technically you probably get a lot of people clumped up, so you can do those AoE attacks, but there's so much AoE res also too that people stack for typically that I think that's kind of gone by the wayside in the present. You probably won't find a lot of success with that, but this is a very interesting map in terms of just the amount of places you can't walk and pathing and you kind of build up here, or this is kind of like height 3 area all through the middle. It's really these people on the left where like this is kind of wild where if you look there is a hard wall here where units with a jump of 1 cannot traverse. So this unit that's here in slot 1 is kind of off on a silo where their only option to get to the middle is kind of going all the way around here. So you're gonna get, and this character at least can move up this way, so there is some synergy here between slots 2 and 3 technically. But yeah, these are very interesting. We've had a couple of these maps as of late where you had one character completely siloed off, but I don't think it was to the degree of this where you had a very hard funnel of where they could potentially walk to.
So I mean, I look at that and I think that's good for a range unit that has like arcing shots.
Yep.
Essentially, especially if you have like bow tie or have some way to limit their movements. Unfortunately, like if you're thinking of maybe slotting Irvine there, like his range is not incredible. He's more of like a mid-range gunner. And he doesn't have a ton of arcing shots, or at least kind of the ones from his main job. I don't think any of them are arcing, actually. You have to go into sniper, I think, to have any kind of arcing shots. So the range heights there and him trying to go from a 0 or a 3 is a major problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's another kind of knock against Irvine here.
Yeah. No, definitely. This is an interesting map to see play out. I'm sure we're going to see more strike per usual, though.
I would like to maybe test out Summer Jade in there in that slot, though. I haven't been able to get like good use out of him on the current map, but I think maybe this is one where potentially he could be decent.
I agree. My problem with Summer Jaden is simply was that he couldn't compete with Mono Strike for me. That between Alphonse and how tanky he is, and even Alaya, she's just tanky enough that he doesn't kill her fast enough compared to how fast she kills everyone else. But now that you're seeing some of those cost restrictions, if it brings out some more Earth that you're not used to seeing, Jaden obviously has a direct correlation to how good he is when it comes to countering Earth. That there's definitely a good synergy here because this is a very different map than what we've seen previously.
I'm hoping that with Lightning not having the unit resistance bump as well, that maybe they won't be quite as oppressive, but we'll have to see.
That's a good point. Okay. And then just from a current perspective, I was very wrong on this, and I hopefully have edited into the video at the beginning my blatantly incorrect observation that Strike would not take off here in global. But the top 10 of the game, and I'm sure even trickling down everywhere else, and I'm sure in class match this week, as you've seen, even Arena, Strike is absolutely everywhere in full domination mode. I really didn't think that was going to happen, quite honestly, because Strike already in JP with the full metal release was so strong on its own. We didn't see that same rollout here on global that I just kind of thought that'd be the same. I assume people just didn't have Ed or Al ready to go, and so Alaya wouldn't get the same upside that she did with that team. But that is not the case, and particularly speaking about the road to worldwide, where everyone was just saying, oh, I'm not pulling and I'm not spending and I'm not playing and I'm quitting. Well, everyone pulled and everyone spent. Everyone's using her everywhere right now. So I was exceptionally wrong in that observation. Have you been seeing a lot of her where you are right now too? I mean, you're right with us in top 10.
Mean, yeah. I mean, yeah. Every team has her. Almost every team. No matter which mode you're playing in. So everybody's trying to take advantage at least of these early days where maybe not everyone is figured out the best ways to approach fighting her or how to handle her. There certainly are ways to do it, but it's not easy by any means.
No, it's not intuitive to most, and it involves some characters that some people weren't ready for. I know Urel and Luel of Earth have both been two primo picks to potentially go against that, and most people just never pulled them, never built them, so they're kind of out of luck there from that perspective. And even Dialdo, I know many haven't. There's a lot of people that didn't go for them. Maybe they went for Bradley, but not Dialdo. And if that's the case, yeah, having a tough time.
I'm a little disappointed that they haven't given us this week Queen Macheri's Mastery 2 ability. I think that it would have been a good time to bring it in, but maybe that'll come next week. But it's a pretty significant unit resistance bump for her. I think it's like plus 40 unit resistance she gets for the first couple hits in battle, which is
that's right. Yep.
Pretty massive for her.
Right, because her re-raise that prevents a lot of the re-raise removal, which typically tend to be single target, other than Alaya's recent buff, who's removed re-raise to teammates, so that kind of throws it out the window. That's probably like a thing to make people pull for Rinoa more. If they made Mashri too attractive, maybe people don't pull for Rinoa the same.
I think that's well, I mean, you don't actually have to pull for her, but I mean, you do have to build her. So maybe they thought less people would build her if Mashari got her upgrade. I'm not sure.
Good point. Oh, you're right, because they're giving out Renault for free. You're right. Yeah. Yep. So good. All right. Well, on that note, we're going to talk a little bit about the arena content and get right into our 1v1 matchup here. The arena content, something a little bit different here. It took me a while to figure out what they were actually talking about this morning, but it's kind of cool. So it's an arena map. It's the same general concept. Today, Monday, and tomorrow, Tuesday, whenever this releases, the first 2 days, are purely mock days only. You get unlimited refreshes, and I think it's a bug at the moment. I don't think you get unlimited medals. It's just mocking. You get normal amount of medals, but after 2 days, it's going to wipe the slate clean, and everyone's only going to get their 5 refreshes a day, and that's it. There's no Visior refreshes, which means throughout the week, everyone has the same number of daily refreshes, which so makes it truly who has the best team that can win against the field and win undefeated. Because if you're playing those element matchups, which so many people are used to doing in Arena, you're going to quickly get surpassed by a lot of these smarter builders that can build for everything. I think it's a really interesting change. I don't know if you've given any thought to it.
I'm excited to see how it plays out. I think that Arena, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's been the same since day one essentially, and in terms of, you know, just the map is changing, the units change. So I do like this added element of strategy to it, where, you know, everybody is on the same playing field in terms of how many chances they're getting, and you know, you have the scoreboard, and whoever can maximize the points the best, you know, is gonna win. So I'm hoping that this becomes more of a regular thing. I think that's an interesting take, an interesting way that they could take that game mode.
I agree totally, and I thought the interesting thing, I'm just confirming it now, Alaya is not one of the like XL bonus. She's not one of the top bonus units. It's Summer Glassy, Gryfford, and Shalze, which no doubt people are still going to be running Alaya by and large for anyone near the top. But I thought that was a nice little, you know, thing that they did, that they didn't incentivize people extra to use her and then just have an arena full of 1.5 billion Alayas.
Yeah, she's 75%, right?
Yeah, as opposed to the 100%. I'll say on that note, JB and I, we want to use the new map, Coastline 3, just to kind of have a fun little mock. Again, we haven't like tuned a ton today. This map just came out. We're just throwing this together, but I know we're kind of mind mocking some things, put some stuff together. But I think the general stipulations we agreed on was that, you know, what's the team we would likely to start off with using for this, just conceptually speaking, in terms of, you know, have to use a bonus unit that's one of the 100%, and attempt to use, you know, 200% vision card bonuses as well, which those 3 vision cards are the Alaya vision card, the Summer Glassy vision card, and the Shalze vision card, that dark res one we were just talking about. So some combination of those. Even a 75% bonus is obviously allowed, but I know if you were typically climbing an arena and you had access to the higher ones, you wouldn't use that. But yeah, for now we'll at least do what we can here. So yeah, Coastline 3, you know, 3 units that are directly opposite of each other. They're not reversed at all. So slot 1 is equal to slot 2 and slot 2. There are some areas here in the middle of the map that are non-traversable. So you do have some grouping that goes on with these units kind of together, because there is that, you know, jump 2 difference or the jump 1 difference that's right here between them. So you do typically kind of have the two of them moving up this way toward the map. You have your slot 3 unit kind of moving this way. And I think at the end of the day, what ends up happening is it all ends up coagulating here in this middle area where you get a lot of those height 1s and 0s and more traversable areas. That's been my experience generally so far. But obviously with Alaya and that large stack impact range, she could stand like over here and probably still nuke everyone over here. That's obviously exaggeration, but I've yet to see any kind of fights do anything on these sides of the maps. I've not seen any utilization of those parts, but we'll obviously see what happens.
Yeah, that's been my experience so far too. It's kind of just a cluster there in the middle.
Oh, you with the Earth? Okay. I literally didn't make any predictions. I'm like, let me just pick a fun team.
I went with the water Earth connection.
Shit. I thought you were bringing Alaya for sure.
Well, that's why, I mean, I thought maybe you're bringing Alaya, so I went with Earth.
I love it. Yeah, so JB and I apparently both figured we both run Alaya. Neither of us are running Alaya.
You haven't seen enough of her this week.
Right? Well, to be fair, I think it's the kind of point too where enough people are going to semi-attempt to hard counter her. But for now, here we're kicking things off. Yeah, look at you with this the earth and water synergy. You and I both rocking Summer Glassy here for that bonus unit, and here as that tank unit. But you're running double tank here. This is interesting.
Are you recording, by the way?
I am recording.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because I'm not.
That'd have been...
Yeah, I'm going with the double tank because more and more like Dialdo actually has impressed me with his damage, especially against... So, I mean, a lot of these units have no spirit. They have no pierce resistance. And he just, does a lot of damage for a tank, especially like when you compare it to Glaciella. She doesn't really do very much.
Definitely. Well, so you're actually bringing something immediately that's going to counter me. Knowing that Alaya doesn't have a ton of barrier break access early, both Jaden the Celebrated and Gryfford, who you guys are seeing for the first time, have 2 exceptional barriers that, like, from range, I was hoping they'd help mitigate some damage, and then they're both like decently good counters to your point on pierce damage. That's why I wanted Jaden here. And then Gryfford is exceptionally good against them. So for now, we're going to see how they hold up, because Bradley's going to come out and smash those barriers like he normally does. And you see them getting that buff there from Gryfford at the moment. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my Dialdo's kind of trailing here, but that's okay. We'll catch up.
Decent auto cure here. Okay. Got some decent sustain. That's an interesting buff.
Oh, out of AP, I guess, there.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. I actually like this about Glassy sometimes. You'll see she like went around the backside there to use her attack. That's not how most tanks move. I think it's really interesting how she puts herself in those positions sometimes.
So Dialdo has the hate now.
And Gryfford just took hate. So that's Gryfford's hate up. So he just went 6 hate. And you should start
to... your players are lined up there. Oh. Dialdo could have had a good hit there against the other two, but Gryfford stole the hate.
Exactly. So that's my favorite thing about him, is that he kind of like takes it away. That's a lot of damage, though. I'm not used to him taking that amount of damage.
He's probably dead, though. Oh, took like nothing from Brad.
He is very sturdy. Magdalene Train. There we go. Down to Courage.
So this is a little bit bad for me now.
Glassy just
good.
Donking him on the head. This is very not good.
Brad's gonna get another turn for me. That's good.
Yeah. So that's one of those things that I've gone back and forth on Gryfford, whether I go for Courage on the Martialist sub or the TMR. I went for the TMR instead here to give him the haste, but he does have Courage capability. What is this Steel Heart? You son of a bitch! What?
I love it.
This started off so good for me. What happened?
My Steel Heart build.
Oh man. Well, hopefully Jaden can do something crazy here, but it's not looking good unless I get a stop here. Bradley reactivated that Courage, so he's lucky that happened again. Please don't. No. Jaden's dead.
All right, now it's done.
well done, man. That turned very quickly.
No, I like the water earth connection, even though it's not like super developed yet. But like I said, I've noticed Dialdo just can do like a lot of damage, and he's super hard to kill, especially with Glaciella next to him. Like he's just not gonna die unless you're throwing magic at him.
No, exactly.
So
all right. Well, JB goes 3-0 on me on the podcasts here for matches, but I will say I've always brought units that I thought were fun. Like I brought Rulgia the first fight. I don't remember what I did last fight, but I got Gryfford here now. I think just fun to highlight some of those characters.
Well, that's kind of what I was going for this time as well. I think that this is a combination that I've never even seen people talk about, like putting Glaciella with Dialdo, but I think it's actually can be kind of interesting. I don't know.
I agree. Well, particularly because to your point of her damage reduction for him, you can build him more offensively and less tanky. Where typically you have to just kind of make him a big meat shield and hope that he does some damage occasionally, but you can really lean into that extra magic, maybe some extra spirit pen on your runes and whatnot if you didn't already.
Yeah, which I did. I used also his red mage lore, which kind of gives him an extra 10% magic boost.
Yep.
So
good stuff. Good stuff, and I'm glad I was able to showcase Gryfford there. Hopefully, the tankiness was more than a 70 cost unit. Again, like he went pretty sturdy there.
He was taking hits from Bradley like a champ there, so
yeah,
I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, so good stuff. All right, well, on that note, that's what we wanted to talk about for the War Room. Some of those, meta observations. We're gonna round things out here with the Leonis Spy Report, looking at the JP with Gernsback, the new Water Pierce unit, the Ultros Vision Card, and Esper. We'll go over those a little more quickly because there are some good Q&A stuff that we want to get to here. But for now, yeah, Gernsback has been a new unit here that I think is really interesting because he does look to do obviously good things from a Pierce perspective, as you just brought up, for what that means from a meta perspective. He's got some good like single target things here. He's got strike resistance as well, and you consider Soul currently in the meta and what Gernsback does for that. I don't know if you've looked much at him, but any thoughts initially from what you might have seen?
He's pretty solid. Like you said, he's kind of focused in the unit resistance direction, which it's going to be a running theme, I think, to really try to shut down Alaya here for a while. It really has been, since she was released. He does have being a water unit, like he really needs to push into that unit resistance to kind of block her damage. And at least from the footage I've seen in JP, he can take a hit from her and can live to see the day. So
yep,
he's got some interesting mechanics that I thought were pretty cool. He's really focusing in like pierce resistance and perils.
Yeah,
and not only does he have like his own standard imperil for 30%, but he does also have a buff which can give him an additional imperil on hit. And he also passes that to his allies as well. And that does stack with other imperils. So essentially he can do a 45% imperil, or if he gave this to Ice Jaden, he can get a 53% imperil on his limit burst. So that is really, really cool.
That's exceptional. I did not know that. I actually didn't know that about him. That's a sizable imperil for Pierce units. Go ahead. And not including his limit break too. That's a unit imperil of 30. Which obviously lines up perfectly with the kit where there are a lot of single target attacks. I think the decreased healing power is one that stuck out too, where that's just such a common thing nowadays with the heal backs and the regens and everything. Like this is a good one for modern era stuff too.
I'm pretty excited about this for the Pierce weapon group because I see him really as an enabler. Like he's bringing in really nice imperils for that job. Jaden, I feel like a lot of times I've been a little bit underwhelmed with his damage, like in some scenarios. Unless you're specifically going up against a unit that doesn't have pierce resistance, he can get shut down, very easily. And then, he, like you saw there in that battle, he can then run out of AP, and then you can kind of get snowballed from there. So
right,
I do like that Gernsback. You can mix him in that ice water connection there with Jaden, and they really kind of help each other out there. So I'm definitely going to try to grab this unit, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I am, for a 70 cost unit, I think he does a lot of really pertinent meta-related things. I haven't looked at the stats yet, though. If I had to guess, that might be where they've kind of given him the deficiencies, where I don't know what his agility looks like, what his health pool looks like, that if he does, get evaporated quickly, that I think that's totally possible. But, when you talk about that water connection, standing next to Summer Glaciella, that's a massive survivability boost for him that I think they kind of hit the nail on the head for what they should have been going for, and feels a nice, not a niche, but a nice role for water, where they have not had a Pierce unit since Glaciella way back in the day. They went away from that, and they technically have a, water Pierce card that's got some crit damage on it too. That I think it's a good addition to round out what this element hasn't really had in a while. I know Justin's probably crying in the corner that it wasn't a Ramada Pierce unit. instead. But maybe someday, Justin.
Well, I'm hoping still we'll get a costume change Ramada here for the new season of the story, and she'll remain in the water element as she should, and kind of bring the Pierce back. But I do want to say on Gernsback, the stats, they're okay. Like his agility, he's got like 64 base, and then he's got an agility passive for 12%. He's good, and the first 70 cost water unit, I want to mention that as well.
Yeah, so we did bring that up with Dia when she came out, that was a big thing for water, getting another lower cost unit. That's a very, very smart point to bring up, where they don't have access to many good low cost units. This is a really good 70 cost unit to add to that. Good point. Good. All right. Well, we also have the Ultros Vision card and the Ultros Esper. We'll go through these relatively quickly. I don't think there's enough. I don't think there's any like mind-blowing things here, but this is a great another Pierce card to add. It's Pierce attack and crit damage of 20 and magic res of 20, and just kind of.
I do have this one in my tool as well.
Thank you. I was just gonna. I thought you did, because I was looking at this before, and I was looking from like a Pierce perspective what vision cards they had, and I do know they have now 2 Pierce attack ones. It's not only the Sahagan, but they also have the Ultros Vision card now, and just linking to that card here, seeing the units overall. I mean, we already know how good the variety of Pierce units are, so seeing those faces here isn't a surprise. But I think there's a lot of other good units here when you look at Summer Glassy being another one here, where she's good, like a great universal tank. And Dialdo, kind of that same concept, great universal tank overall. I think it's a really smart vision card for the Pierce group.
Yeah, I mean, this is not only is it a Pierce card, it's yet another Red Mage sword card.
Yep.
So I mean, that's going to be like 14 cards for the group once this comes to global, which is crazy.
Yep.
Obviously, the red mages can't take as much advantage of the Pierce attack, but the crit damage and magic res is fine enough.
Yep.
Can kind of depends on which damage healers you're trying to enhance, but yeah, great that you have 2 tanks in there. Sylvie as a support you could throw into if once she ever gets her upgrades. So yeah, lots of work with there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the Ultros Esper is a offensive oriented Esper. Attack oriented Esper for Gernsback, and decently agility here. 17's no slouch. I was looking at the board here earlier, and I'll just kind of clear this for everybody. This is another one with 5 unit res. I think a really cool underrated thing here too, in the very far bottom right, you're getting up to 20 defense pen as well, which is obviously great for a variety of units that maybe need that a little bit of extra love on the defense pen side if they're older units. So I like that very much. I think the attack percent, just the raw percentage, is something that is not around enough on many of these Espers. I know there's a couple de facto magic ones like Bahamut. I always think of Typhon as well. For attack percent, though, I think it's just like Omega. Then off the top of my head, I can't remember many others that have attack percent, so that's pretty cool. And then obviously you have a whole bunch of other options here. You could go a little extra crit damage, a bunch of magic res if you wanted to go with some of these other routes instead. The Pierce attack, you get your normal lightning res if you wanted to try to, reduce that to a positive number at least. So I like this Esper.
Yeah, so this is kind of a anti-Saul / anti-Alaya Esper. That's kind of what they're going for here. So you have the unit and lightning resistance. You can get 5 of each. You got magic resistance on there for the Saul matchup, and then it's got the poison resistance innately, which is kind of one of Saul's big claims to fame.
Dude,
so
JB, how do your headphones fit with the big brain observation? That is, I completely flew under the radar for me. That is a very good point about the poison res for Saul.
Because that's actually a team that players have been using over in JP. Like that's essentially become one of the new metas. Is Alaya has been mixed in with Saul, so they have this. Typhon comes in, and obviously one of the all-time great bosses from Final Fantasy VI. So love to see him come in.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that's kind of the idea here.
Absolutely right, and there's technically Fire Killer here too for some of that anti-Saul if you wanted to go that route. I think the attack percent's probably better just from like a more universal application perspective. But yeah, really, really creative what they did here with this. It's good stuff. Well, that leads us to the Q&A section here, where we have 4 Q&A things. I know we're getting a little long here, but I think most of these will probably get through relatively quickly. So this first question here is one that I actually threw in here because JB and I had some fun, I'll say heated debates for a little while on this concept. The thoughts on the new aura abilities and the more unique mechanics introduced. I had a problem with this initially, where it seemed like Gumi was being very free with how many unique mechanics and aura mechanics they were giving out without any really kind of checks and balances, where typically the mechanics they've given characters, they've kind of given out to a couple characters. It's been a little slower in how often these unique ones have been rolled out. So, that's Select 2. It was for M. Nellis. Then you had a break, and then it was Ed, and then there was a break, and then it was someone. It wasn't just like, bam, 10 new things at once. But we have Summer Glassy's aura. Ferris has 2 different things on the aura. Squall technically has that unique damage reduction mechanic. There's a bunch of like interesting mechanics with Soul and what he does for some of those interactions that I didn't know. I mean, like me personally, my fear was that Gumi was going to use this unchecked as a way to just drive power creep, and they kind of have. But JB also brought up a good point too. I don't want to speak your point on this early, but they did a pretty decent job. Like, there are histories of this, where like Runic Blade on Celeste was a completely unique mechanic. A couple of other characters that have some unique stuff, so we just gotta trust them, I guess. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this now as things have continued to go on.
I mean, I can see where you're coming from, because they're definitely. I don't know if there's been a spot where they've released several new mechanics kind of in a short period. But we've definitely have had, plenty of unique statuses and things that can't be dispelled or really have any counter in the game, over the years that have gone so far in War of the Visions. But I think what they do is they develop these new mechanics so that they can then give them out as grades to, to older characters, as they age. And we've already seen that King Mont has gotten the physical aura as part of his LB upgrade. We're actually going to be getting that this week, which is a huge upgrade for him. And then Joom actually was announced that she's going to be getting it as well. Nice. As part of her upgrade, and that's coming to JP this week. So
nice, that's huge. Right, so like it's a good point. Like, if they're just testing them out and they do keep them consistent in how they apply them to other characters in the game, then it just becomes another part of the incremental power creep. It just seemed, as a prisoner of the moment, particularly with how our accelerated schedule, it just seemed like they were being really free with kind of deciding whatever they wanted to give these characters. And it just so happened that many of these characters were meta defining in their own right. That with these new Ashen Warriors that are coming out that are being teased real heavily, it's one of those like devil on my shoulder that's like, Gumi's probably just going to give them whatever the hell they want to make them busted and make people pull for them, and that's obviously not a good thing for the balance of the game.
I mean, I think part of it too is that we've got into a phase in the game where they've pushed the buffs and abilities to a point where, we talked about it with Elias. She's got 5 components to her buffs. So the buffs are just like a whole, book that you're reading right now. The counter abilities have been pushed since the 3rd anniversary in a huge way. Passive abilities have been pushed. The characters are getting more area resist and defense pen than we've seen in the past. So I think that they have to kind of go and invent some of these new things sometimes when the other things have just gotten to a point where realistically they can't really push them much further, the envelope in those cases. So
right, totally. Yeah, you get to what was the old joke? You have defense and then defense pen and then defense pen reduction. What's next? Like defense pen reduction, like it only goes so far.
We actually did miss that the King Mont thing. That's actually a pretty big deal for his Berserk.
You know what it was? I don't think I saw that in the announcements. I could be wrong. Oh, limit burst enhancement. Oh, son of a bitch! I swear to God. Hold on, this will be in the. We'll put this in. So limit burst enhancements. Yeah, we missed King Mont. When I read this, I went Ziza Ayaka, and I went and just kept scrolling. I completely missed it was King Mont after that.
No, that's. I mean, out of all the LB upgrades that have come this far, I think this is the most game-changing.
I would agree. I'm so mad I'm not in the WDL playoffs. I was actually banking on this coming in and hoping to have it for my King Mont for
that would be huge.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, the King Mont one. Screw it. We'll just kind of shoehorn in here real quick here. So King Mont is getting his limit break upgrade. Forgive the janky cut here that JB and I are making at the moment to get this in. But on the limit break enhancer that he's getting that Summer Glassy upgrade, where he will reduce damage 40% for allies and decrease AP consumption of 20%. So that's obviously super nice as an enabler.
Yeah, so Glassy gets the damage reduction, and then she gets the accuracy bump. So King Mont's kind of got his own version where, depending on the meta, that's obviously better in a lot more scenarios where evade units maybe aren't always in your purview. So otherwise it's identical in terms of the physical mitigation. The only thing is, like, I think that his obviously he can only use it in one battle. You know, the limit burst. So whereas Glassy, you know, she can go multi rounds with hers.
Yep.
The other nice thing about the upgrade is that you can see that icon there on the left, no friendly fire. So not only is he getting damage increase, where it also is going to absorb HP, so he can like full heal himself with this thing.
Yes.
And then he obviously is going to be able to use it in scenarios because he doesn't need to dance around teammates and worry about them. So really massive upgrade for this unit.
I'll be honest, I didn't even see the absorb HP. I've looked at this for 3 weeks in a row and I didn't even see that because that's awesome. You're right. If you figure he's already got a heal back as it is, that if he takes some damage, gets in a range, absorbs HP, it allows him to not trigger that threshold as quickly. That's an awesome. Yeah, this is exceptional. I have not done any limit burst upgrades yet. This will be the first one I do. So the second question we have here, this is from Brad Strong Earth. I'll give him a shout out just for how active he is in our discords in the community. What's the worst or least useful job vision card released so far? And so we have our job vision cards here. JB, anyone that you want to point to in particular?
For me personally, it's been the Winter Ravies card. I thought I had kind of high hopes for it at the beginning because it had like the vision ability for the magic barrier, but I think part of the issue is that we just never got the winter upgrades, Gumi. So I feel like one of the key use cases was obviously using this with Winter Ravies, and she's kind of been collecting dust for a while.
I'll give you that. I completely agree. This is definitely the ability is one of the best things about the card. The card also did have a good time with the Pierce res for a while. To be fair, we might see that come back because as to your point, Pierce is becoming more of a thing here. Again, when you look at the units here, I don't know if there's a ton that like pop out to most people in terms of making a rainbow party out of them. But yeah, I would agree. This is a good candidate for it. Did you have a second one that I think you were?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of tossing between this one and then the Bunny Resnick card.
That's mine. Yep. This card for me is...
This one was always like such a confused card for me. Like individually, like crit rate and slash res pen, like I feel like that's fine enough. But then like the 15 spirit has always been like, I feel like that's, if I'm getting a card, I really don't want to see that on my card and using up kind of one of those 3 slots for stats I can get.
No, if there's defense or spirit, it needs to be alongside something worthy of being in the main slot. Because if you drop that to a sub slot, that stat's basically worthless.
Right.
Yeah. This job vision card today still makes no sense to me. My only upside for it, and I actually think this is still an upside. I don't know how big it is. A lot of these Pierce units, there was a time when there was a fair amount of Pierce res in the game because of how meta Glaciella was, that people were stacking Pierce res. And so one of the alternatives of them doing damage still was how many of these Pierce units do have slashing potential on their sub jobs. There's a fair amount of them that have Nightblade, for instance. And so that to me was like a nice card for Pierce units that should it ever get to the point, because remember, Pierce is still one of those resistances where they have not given penetration to. So it is easily counterable to the extent that you can just stack Pierce res and kind of shut them out. That's not true as much for strike res with Elia. Goddamn you, Gumi. But Pierce res, that's a thing. And so that to me was like the hidden upside of this card, that should people try to like hard counter your Pierce units by stacking that resistance, they can kind of get around it and still do some modicum of damage with the slash res pen. Because outside of that, this card makes like no sense at all anymore.
Yeah, and I think it's another one of those ones where Resnick, it's probably one of the prime candidates to use it, and because she also gets the limited bestowed, but she's also kind of on the shelf here for foreseeable future.
Yeah, not nearly good enough here. So this is our third question, everybody. I'm sorry. Yes, it's quite lengthy, and it's for good reason, because I want to demonstrate a point here. Are there wide-reaching changes you wish we'd make to gameplay, thinking about how to use MA2's Transcendences and buffing a character's skills, but then more specifically making system changes that would do stat boosts and debuffs like stacking and refreshing themselves, i.e. Elena's Crystal Shine Bright would stack on itself, resulting in one turn being 25% agility, the second turn 50% agility, the third turn 70%, yada yada yada. Sounds broken. I'm sure it will, without any limits, be broken, but it was just a thought to mix up how useful some units may be. And I'm purposely putting this question covering our screen because I absolutely don't want this to happen because we are already so bloated from an ability perspective as is in terms of like the complexity of trying to analyze that if I have to read the amount of ability text anymore like this, that's not a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing for abilities to be that complex.
I will say that one of my favorite things that Gumi has done so far, at least in terms of going back to the old units, was the job revisions and kind of updating the year one jobs, especially with kind of giving them some new buffs and mechanics and things. I do really like the limit burst upgrades so far because they are like a one-time use ability and they're kind of like a defining skill for some of the units. I feel like at least so far, some of them have really gotten like the King Mont one we just looked at. Like that's an insane upgrade.
Yep.
That's something that can, just like when he first came out, it would win you a fight. It has that potential in every game. So I'm really looking forward to some of them as we start moving forward and some of the abilities that they start to get.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, no, I think that there are good ones and bad ones. This one's just a little bit too complex for my liking in terms of the suggestion. And I speak purely as like a teacher too, as a content creator. Like you and I do our best to educate and do calcs and do some stuff. And it's already very muddy as it is in terms of trying to calculate things on the fly. Way more difficult than it was a couple of years ago. In terms of the amount of abilities and like X factors to consider, what was dispelled, what wasn't, what's penetrated, what's not penetrated. Well, yeah, like there's so many things that if you had to like add in more here, I think you would just kill any kind of beginner friendly. This game's already not beginner friendly, to be frank, but you'd kill more than it is any other beginner friendly things if you made this way more complex than it is at the moment. You wouldn't be able to analyze anything.
Yeah, I mean the complexity is already too high. So
yeah,
as much as it would be fun for like people who like us who really like to geek out on the game, like I agree. I don't want to see it get even more so.
yeah. And the last question here, this is from Thunder Mage on our Discord. This is a great question. To rank the team comps we've played this summer, because obviously summer's come to a close at this point, in terms of like how many times, in my opinion, or our opinion, the relative power of how you've used them. And so we are going to leverage WOTV stats to do this, where we have the ability to look at what we've both used over a specific period of time. And I'll kick things off here with you if you want, JB, here at Howl. And so we'll look at primarily the attack teams.
Maybe like probably like June 1st.
Yeah. Oh, let's do 24. That's only a couple days away.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, that works. Okay. So we'll go from June 1st to September and max unit ranking. I'll limit this to top 10 units you've used. And so overall, this seems to be your distribution through the summer. That looks like Bradley, Dialdo. I think who's your third for that team? I don't even Queen Machery, I would think.
I think I mostly used Velis with that team, but then it was like split between Velis and Machery.
Yeah. So just looking at this, do you have any favorites that stuck out to you, or ones you might have used the most and had fun with?
So you can see there, like I used fire for like a really long time, and it was like killing it for me for the longest time. But it was kind of right around maybe middle to end of June that I was really starting to kind of see the end of the road for them.
Yep.
And then I kind of really went to Earth for a while. I really invested into Dialdo and Bradley. And then Machery and Velis, I kind of swapped between them, kind of depending on the map and the matchups and things. I played Dark for a little while, and then more recently I've used Water and I've used some Strike. I would say my favorite team, I don't know, I really have enjoyed using Dialdo a lot. Dialdo and Bradley, I really, really loved that team. Especially once I got Velis in there when Dark Gold came in. That's I would say is my favorite team of the summer, and I really got good results with it.
I'm surprised. I thought you were gonna go Firevade. I thought because Firevade has so many fun options for opening buff rotations, and each map's a little bit different for what you want to do for like bait, and there's some like fun hit rate things to expose, and there's no better satisfaction than watching an enemy team whiff 30 teams on you. That's like a WOTV boner just watching people miss.
I mean, definitely. I mean, if you ask me, like, what was my favorite of the spring? Like, definitely Fire.
You're right.
But once we got into the summer, like once Bradley and like Strike was going around, like it got really, really difficult to play it. So Yeah,
That makes sense.
that's
Yeah,
kind
you can see that uptick through the later end of the summer here. That makes sense. Oh yeah, you're right. You can see. I'm sorry. You can see fire basically plateau here, um,
yeah.
in mid June. So that makes a lot of sense to what you were saying.
Yep.
The water uptick. Interesting. I like it. I like it. I was kind of similar with you on the water. One second here. I'll bring up my profile. So the unfortunate downside is I was for just a little while of time. Being in VIP, we kind of are mandated to stick to certain offensive balances, so there wasn't as much creativity and a free reign for me to just use what I want. That being said, I pretty much used what I want. If I really didn't like it, I would have pushed back on it. But yeah, for a very long time to start the summer, you can see I was using Addison and Winged Stern and absolutely loving them. That through that like same period of time as your fire evasion plateaued, like these two were absolutely like slaughtering all kinds of evasion for me. And even in some of the dark matchups, they were doing very, very well. But as summer went on, Perrine kind of, always continued that uptick and still did now with Faris and Glassy. You're seeing the same thing with me. As for you, that we're seeing a lot more water uptick here. Lightning, the same idea, but that's really more of a strike thing than anything. And I did use Bartz for just a little while to have some fun. Bartz was a big part of that Stern Addison team. I didn't have as much success with him, though, as I did early on. It was really the Warrior of Light that you're seeing here in the middle. That Warrior of Light Stern Addison team was like nigh unbeatable through most of that fire meta and dark meta that we saw through a lot of the summertime. Like that light team. And I ended up max reincarnating both Stern and Addison because it was just like lights out that I'm like, why wouldn't I invest more in them? They've already gotten me such good results.
Oh, that's a cool team. I
Yeah.
will say on the waterfronts that like couple weeks before Elia dropped where like we had Summer Glassy, like that Summer Glassy, Perrine, Ferris team was so good.
Yep.
It's I mean obviously it's so tough to run right now, but it was beating pretty much everything else that I could find.
Anything. Perrine was a monster for like a 2 week period. And it's funny how quickly she just kind of fell off the face of the earth in the past couple weeks of the Elia coming out here. So good stuff. So yeah, I think those are a fun little look back. I appreciate that question. It's nice to kind of like have some introspective review on what we've done, and hopefully that was fun to see for you all as well. But I think that essentially covers everything we wanted to talk about today. I know there's probably more, but we've got a good slew of topics here. But I am looking forward to Final Fantasy VIII. I'm not going to go nuts personally in this first week. I'm in a decent spot for Viz. I think I'm at like 18K. I'll probably just slow build what I can, throw a couple pulls just to see if I get lucky early. I'll wait out the tickets that they give out if there's any free summon tickets. But yeah,
Hopefully the Chocobo missions will be generous this time. It seems like kind of hit or miss when they're going to be good or when they're going to be going to be Ferris tier or are they going to be like Bart's tier.
Yep. That was a wild couple weeks there for the
Yeah.
shard drops. Yeah, good point on that. But
yeah, we definitely like excuse us if we miss some things for this week. There's just a lot to like go back in and kind of cover. I know last time we missed URL and people were questioning us that in the comments. Obviously she's turned into like this huge unit now, which is cool to see, but also like it's what we have to work with currently to against Elias. So
yep. That's it for now, but I don't know any closing thoughts. I think we've said our piece here tonight. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, everybody, per usual, and we'll talk to y'all soon.
See you next time.